And today we're going to talk about different ways, I think it's 5, but different ways that you can serve your audience or that you can work with somebody. What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of Financial Freedom Fastlane. You know the vibes. The quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you get to live it. I'm recording this episode a few days after Thanksgiving. Not sure when this one will release, but I'm recording it a few days after Thanksgiving. And so after Thanksgiving, I try to, after any time, just kind of like getting off track with your nutrition, I try to drink this little concoction. I actually try to do it daily, honestly. It's just good for you, like good for inflammation and digestion and all that jazz. And so what I do is I get some hot water, some fresh lemon, not ginger. Is it ginger? Yes, ginger, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar, right? And I drink it like it's tea, and it's actually not that bad. But yeah, so the reason for bringing up this drink concoction is because it reminded me of something. So for the past week or so, when I've been cutting up the lemon and the ginger, I've been using this really dull, like just butter knife. Or not really dull, just like butter knives aren't designed to like cut through that. That's why it's a butter knife, right? It's designed to just cut through butter. And so it was like a really rough cut, lemon juice squirting everywhere. Had to like tear it apart with my hands to get the piece that I wanted, right? So today I took the knife I should have been using the entire time, and I cut through it. It was like, and I cut through the ginger, right? And it was like real smooth. And so it reminded me of these analogies that we hear. We hear stuff like, sharpen the saw or sharpen the axe or sharpen twice, cut once. And we hear these analogies, but sometimes it hits home when you have a real world example. And so what that reminded me of is your axe is like your brain or your preparation, right? And like sharpening, your mind. And when you have the sharp mind or have the sharp skill sets and resources, right, it makes things so much easier, right? So oftentimes people are trying to do stuff prematurely, and it ends up being harder because they aren't prepared and they don't have the skill set, right? When you have the right tools, you have the right skills, once you try to execute, it actually seems flawless. So sometimes you see somebody launch something or do something and they're like, man, how was that so successful? Right? Because they were prepared and they had the right tools. I've been doing this for so long. It doesn't matter how long I had that butter knife, right? It was never going to be the right tool to cut through the lemon or cut through the ginger, right? So people confuse time, right, with experience, or time with like, just because I've done it for so long, it should be working better now. But if you never sharpen the saw, right, then it's always going to be difficult to cut. So take that, what you will, but like when you think about something you're trying to accomplish or achieve in life, ask myself, have I done everything I can to prepare or to equip myself with the skills and the tools and the resources so that what I'm trying to do might be a little bit easier once I try to do it, right? Just thought that tidbit was helpful, which is a perfect segue into today's podcast, right? And today we're going to talk about different ways, I think it's 5, but different ways that you can serve your audience or that you can work with somebody, right? Because I think it's important for entrepreneurs or business owners or even the general public when they're thinking about how in depth they want to go with somebody that they want to learn from, learning the different ways that you can work with somebody, assuming they have, these various pillars or whatever the case may be, right? And if you're a business owner, these are pillars you might consider structuring, right, to increase the way in which you can serve your audience while not alienating people that want to work with you, but maybe just aren't at a certain level, while also not underserving the people who want to work with you at the highest level, right? So the first level is DIY free, and DIY stands for do it yourself, right? So DIY free will be an example of this, right? This show, I'm saying podcast because we are going to release this as a podcast on audio outlets in 2024. So Donna, let's get on the calendar to figure out when we gonna get that done. I got the graphics now. But DIY, right? So free content like this, right? Free content like this where I have 17 episodes of my uncensored podcast, which is the podcast that I did before the Melanin Money Show. I have probably about 117 or 120 plus episodes now of the Melanin Money Show that drops every single week. I think we're up to close to 45 plus or so on this particular series, Financial Freedom Fastlane. I have over 2,000 Instagram posts. Obviously, not every single one of them are business or finance related, but I have a good amount that are value driven, probably 85%. And then of course, all the other free content I post on other platforms, the other podcasts that I've been on for other people's, content, the other stages that I've stepped on. So that is what you would consider DIY free, right? Where I am putting out valuable information that if a person takes the time to piece it together, do their due diligence and connect the dots, they can execute and get some results with, right? The pros of DIY free is that it's free, right? If you can get what you need from it, then you can get some value and make some changes in your life for absolutely free. That is a pro. Some of the cons, or I would say challenges rather, with DIY free is that, let's just say I've been creating content for over 10 years, right? And then you get into my ecosystem 6 months ago, right? What I said might be really valuable, but it might be a piece or a breadcrumb that is a part of a bigger picture, right? Maybe a better, more eloquent way to say it is one piece of a puzzle. And so now you're trying to figure out, because you're in this free ecosystem, what puzzle piece is this specifically? Where are the missing pieces? How does this connect? How does this relate to my situation, right? Not bad, but right, that's just the realities of free, because I'm putting this stuff out at scale, not to mention all the short form content and clips as well. And so now it's contingent upon when you got in my ecosystem to determine how you can connect those dots. Now, sometimes people go the extra mile, and if I don't have this now, I'll try to create something like this for 2024. But basically, like where to get started guide. So like inside of one of my paid communities, I have that naturally, right? Like where to get started. But maybe I can create like a free guide, because I have so much free content. It's like my top podcast or my top post or whatever on social platforms. That should be pretty easy for me to do. So I'll work on that for you guys. So that way, if you do come into the ecosystem, maybe you can just like opt in. I'll have like a evergreen opt-in in the show notes. And then from there, it'll take you to why my hat feel crooked? It'll take you to that get started guide, right? And that even in and of itself was kind of like a quick masterclass in like lead generation, right? So it's like, even if somebody's in your ecosystem for free, how can I give them more value for free? How can I structure it? Hey, I know you probably found this by listening to the Financial Freedom Fastlane show or watching the Financial Freedom Fastlane show, and you probably are opting in because you like the content, but maybe you want to know where you can go to get some additional help for free. Here's my free guide on my top post, my top podcast, my top whatever, right? So now you're getting people in your ecosystem so that you can nurture them for something that you want to sell, right? But yeah, level 1 is DIY free, okay? Level 2 is DIY paid, right? So DIY paid means it's like, okay, instead of you having to piece together all the different various content that I've created over the years online, right? I have a curriculum, I have a structure, I have a framework that I've organized for you, and all you have to do is now follow that blueprint, right? So it's a big step above DIY free, because now I've filtered it, I've distilled it, and I've organized the things that you need to know in a streamlined way, right? And that can be things like courses, it can be books, whether that's an ebook or a physical book. And essentially, like, that's a person's like brain on paper or brain like organized in a digital course format. And so that can be very good for the self-motivated person, for the person who, just needed that structure. It can work really well. Some of the challenges with DIY paid, even though it's super organized, is, you might have questions specifically related to you or specifically related to the curriculum. But generally speaking, not in all cases, right, that DIY paid platform, right, is not necessarily always going to give you access to the creator, right? So you'll have access to the course, but not the source, as I like to say. And so again, depending upon where you are in your journey and what your needs are, how complex they are, that could be a great start. It could be everything you need right now, but it could pose some limitations if you need some access, right? And really what we're talking about here is varying levels of access, right? So the course is giving you a little bit more access because of the level of structure that it has been created. And then now the next step would be like a group coaching program, right? So you got DIY, then you got done with you. And so a done with you is like, okay, you still have that curriculum, you still have that framework, but now you have access to the creator, right? You have access to the source, the person that created it. So instead of just having to go through the curriculum and hope that you're understanding it, Now you could, that person probably has weekly coaching calls or monthly coaching calls where you can bring your questions about what you're learning, or bring your questions generally related to their expertise, which naturally will probably speed up your timeline versus someone who just has the course or just has DIY resources that they're putting together, right? So really, the more you pay, what you're essentially paying for is speed, right? Because theoretically speaking, the closer I get to the sun, the warmer I'm going to get, right? i.e., the closer and more access I get to the person I'm trying to learn from, right, the faster I'm going to learn. So typically speaking, that's why as you ascend, those things cost more, right? And they also cost more because there's more time put into it, there's more value put into it, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, for the creator, this is from speaking to my entrepreneurs who want to create something like this. If you at least have the curriculum as the base, everything that you do as you ascend or give people closer access is really just deepening the value proposition off the main thing, right? So I'll give you an example. Like I'll try to get through the tiers, and I'll give you an example of like how that relates to my business, right? So you have group coaching, i.e. done with you, right? And then I actually shout out to one of my new mentors. So his name is Michael McDonald. He is the CEO of Earn Your Leisure. And naturally we have similar demographics, right? So I was like, listen, I practice what I preach. I'm like, yo, y'all boys killing it. And we're on our path and we're doing our thing, but I'm sure there's something I can learn from you. I don't want the free stuff. You put out great content. I want access, right? So I paid for him to coach me on some specific things, right? Which will probably result in some changes that you guys see here. Good changes, obviously. So I reached out to him for some specific like things I wanted to learn. But what I learned from him is when I looked at his kind of like service offering, he had like, I don't think he mentioned DIY, right? I think that's just like all his free content, which is accurate. But I saw that he had done with you one-on-one, right? And then he had done for you, which I'll explain in a minute, right? So one-on-one is a step above group coaching, because with group coaching, it's like, okay, I still got to do the work, but I get access to you in this group format, right? Which is great. I can ask my questions on a weekly, monthly basis, whatever the cadence is. That's amazing. Again, as your needs increase and as the depth of the problems you're trying to solve amplify, you might not be able to get all your questions off in a group format, right? Because you have a growing and evolving situation, and you have other people in the group, and you can't hog the entire hour coaching session with the questions that you want, right? So that hybrid step in between is like you still get access to all of the curriculum and the group coaching stuff, but in addition to that, at least I'll speak in my business model, you get access to working with somebody in a one-on-one capacity, right? So one-on-one. And again, what changed? Access. What they want to learn is generally the same. They just need more access relative to the complexity of their situation or the speed in which they're trying to go. And they know if I can ask you 10 questions in 1 hour versus one question over 10 weeks, right? Because in a group coaching format, right, you might not be able to ask all your questions in one session, but in a one-on-one session, I can probably ask 5 to 10 questions in one session because that hour is dedicated to me. So you shrink time and you speed up, right? So that's the thing that people don't realize. It's like, I might be paying more, but I'm getting to my goal faster, which means that I'm going to be able to get to the results faster, which means I'm going to make more money faster versus delaying the outcome, right? Not that either one is bad. I personally love, even if you have a one-on-one offer, making sure that people still get access to the group coaching, because other people, your peers, will ask questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know the answer to, which is extremely valuable. So sometimes people think they only want one-on-one, but you don't even know the questions that you should be asking, right? So group coaching is very, very valuable, but having that hybrid step where it's like you got to do the work, but you get one-on-one access to me, right? To get that work done faster, get those results done faster. Now, the highest level is done for you, right? Done for you. And that's when you have a service offering where you're able to do most of the heavy lifting for your client. And as a result, right, you're going to charge the most in that tier. Now, the one thing I want people to understand about done for you, whether you're on the person who's creating it side or you're on the person that's consuming it, it does not completely absolve you from doing something, right? It just means that the person's doing most of the heavy lifting. At the very least, right, there's information that you're gonna have to provide, access that you're gonna have to provide as the consumer for the person to deliver the done for you offer, right? So for example, if we are doing a client's bookkeeping, or we're doing a client's tax planning, or we're doing a client's with investments, whatever the case may be, there's still steps that the person's going to have to do in order for us to do it. Sometimes people want to play big dog and they want to, hey, I got the money, I'm gonna drop the bag, I don't want to do no work. But like, we still need something from you to do our job, right? So done for you can be great, but it doesn't mean that like you don't have to do anything. It just means that you don't have to do most of it, and there's still certain things that have to be done in order for that person to do their job, right? So done for you is obviously the highest level, and it's because you're giving the most level of access and you're doing the most work on their behalf, right? So when you're thinking about your business, do you have all those peers? Do you have DIY free, which gets people into your ecosystem, even knows that you have something valuable to offer? DIY paid, right? Done with you, one-on-one. So we can say done with you plus one-on-one, right? And then done for you, right? Done for you. Those are the 5 layers that everybody needs in their business, in my opinion. Or you could just decide to like lean all in on one. Like, there's nothing wrong with like, I only want to do group coaching. And I think like what happens is, like, let's say you come from a service-based background, right? And all you're doing is one-on-one, which feels incredibly unscalable, right? And because that's all you're doing, you're kind of compromising on your prices, because it's like, well, like, this is all I have to offer, so I got to accept whoever, right? So not only are you compromising on your prices, you're also not necessarily serving the client the best way, or serving the best client relative to that service, because you're accepting more people than you probably should be accepting, right? So what I love about this expansive like offering, right? People talk about 7 streams of income. I just showed you, well, 4, because one's free. 4 streams within the same business model, right? 4 streams within the same business model. And it's really the same product, so to speak. It's just like increased levels of access. But what I love about this is that once you build out these done with you and DIY tiers in particular, now what happens is, if someone can't afford your higher ticket price, you don't have to lose the customer entirely. You have something to downsell them to. You have a way to still serve them, right? So what does that look like in my world, right? In my world, we have, obviously I spoke about the done for you free, which is what you're consuming right now, and the podcast and all the other stuff, right? The DIY paid is our Melanin Millionaires Club membership tier, right? And it's a membership access where you get access to our curriculum so that you can go through the DIY process. But what's cool about ours is you still get access to a community, right? So we're not just giving you a course and throwing you to the wolves. So ours is, at every level of our paid offerings, there's some level of like access, which I think is really cool, right? Because we want people to get results. So we're not like separating our prices or our tiers solely based upon the more you pay, the more access you get. We set it up to where we're meeting you at the problem and the need that you have now. And then as you get new problems, then you can ascend to the next tier, right? So in our membership tier, you need to get the right programming. Like, you don't even have the right software, right? So you need to get the right software downloaded in your brain so that you can now be the person that can know what it takes and have the ability to take the actions on building wealth, right? That's the first level. The second level is the mentorship level, where it's like, hey, you technically could not have the software and, join that level and then kind of do both at the same time, but depending upon your budget and your appetite. But on the mentorship level, it's like, okay, cool. Well, at least now you have access to the mental framework and the programming. And now what we need to do is we need to lean into what you are specifically going to do in order to get that to that next level. How do you become a multi-6-figure entrepreneur, right? Not because I care about teaching you how to make money, because I don't, right? But because I understand that the greatest lever into being able to build wealth faster is making more money, right? It's not going to Starbucks or, cutting back on your food budget. Now, again, those things can be helpful. You got to play offense and you got to play defense, but that isn't going to move the needle the most, right? So making sure that we help you understand what things you can do to become that multi-six-figure entrepreneur so that ultimately you can have more money to be able to build wealth and invest, right? The problem is once you become that multi-six-figure entrepreneur, then you are now going to need to expand. You're going to need to have team. You're going to need to understand like how to scale, right? And that's where our next tier comes in, our mastermind tier, right? And on that tier, it's not just group coaching like the mentorship program is, which is amazing. We know that you have more complex situations at this stage. And so not only do you get access to the group coaching, you get access to one-on-one consults with a financial planner, right? An advisor to help you like really refine the things that you're trying to achieve, right? And then last but not least, we have our mogul tier, which is for the person who is like, all right, well, I have a $1 million plus business, but now I'm trying to turn this business into an asset that I own instead of a business that I run, right? And maybe I even want to exit it, right? And that's an invite only tier. And so, we are able to serve our clients from free and them just learning who we are all the way to them wanting to exit their business and the different principles of wealth that matter at that stage, the different principles of entrepreneurship relative to wealth building that matter at that stage, right? Because I always want to make that distinction because there's plenty of business coaches out there and I don't desire, to be the best business coach. These are just value add components because I know if I can help them make those tweaks and improve their business, improve their cash flow, improve their profits, that means they're going to have more money to be able to invest and build wealth. So for entrepreneurs out there and you're trying to think about how to structure your business, if this is applicable to you, obviously if you have a product-based business, it might be a little bit different. I still think there's ways to adopt some of this stuff, especially if you want to teach people how to do what you're doing. But ultimately, this is a way how you can layer your business, have a core foundation of your frameworks, but ultimately have varying levels of access that people can take, right, in order to get results faster and ultimately create more streams of revenue for you and be able to serve people in a higher capacity. So hopefully this was helpful. If you like this video, please leave a comment and let me know. Like, share, and subscribe because it is truly helpful, right? If you are a person that's going to keep consuming these free videos, the way that you can extend some reciprocity is by subscribing, number one, to the channel, engaging with the content via liking and commenting, which is super helpful. And also let me know what you want me to create, right? That's at the very least. I thought this episode was great. Would love to see you talk about X, Y, and Z, right? Or I saw somebody else talk about this. Can you give some insight to that, right? So engaging with the content is a way that you can pay it forward because obviously, even though I'm just sitting in front of my computer and I'm recording, I do have a team that helps get this stuff uploaded and our thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. So it's not free, right? So if you're not going to pay, the other thing that you can do besides paying attention, if you find this valuable, is helping our content spread and reach more people. So thank you so much for engaging with this content. Another episode of Financial Freedom Fastlane in the books. And remember, freedom is for sale if you're willing to pay the price.